රැස් වී දෙන ජීවිතේ.
Politics is the art for looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today is, what is the need of the hour? Is it an election or is it fighting a global pandemic? To discuss all this and more, we've invited 4 guests to the studio this evening. Joining us right on the show is a former governor as well as President's Counsel Maitri Gunaratne, attorney at law. Thank you very much, Mr. Gunaratne, for joining us this evening. Also joining us right on the show is Mr. Harsha Nanaikara, attorney at law. Also joining us right on Face the Nation is Mr. Krishmal Varanasuri, attorney at law, as well as Mr. Kanishka Vitarana, attorney at law. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. It's very important to keep our viewers abreast on what's happening. And we've taken that stake to keep our viewers up to date on a balanced and a full-fledged coverage in what is required right now in the country. So let's start off tonight's show with President's Counsel Maitri Gunaratne, attorney at law, who's also contesting under the symbol of the telephone, representing the Samagijana Balavegya, if at all an election is held on the 20th of June of this year. Maitri, what is important right now? We're talking about an election, we're talking about fighting a global pandemic. Right at the outset, you might say, what is important right now is fighting a global pandemic. But democracy is a vital part in any country. Democracy should reign supreme. What is the need of the hour right now?
Samir, clearly, fighting this pandemic should be our first priority, second priority, and third priority. No one is asking for an election. It is this government which wanted a 2/3 majority. They were dreaming of a 2/3 majority, and that's why at the first available instant they declared an election. Now, for instance, on the 24th of January, the leader of the opposition, Mr. Sajith Premadasa, at that time brought it to the notice of Parliament that there is a corona issue like this in China, and that is growing all over the world, for the government to take notice of it. They took no notice. Then thereafter, on about the 10th of February, the World Health Organization very clearly came forward and said that this is called the COVID-19, and this is a global pandemic. This has to be dealt with. Now, all those signals, all those signs were totally done away with, disregarded. And what did the government do? On the first available instance, the 2nd of March, they dissolved Parliament. By that time, this had become a pandemic. The World Health Organization had very clearly stated that this is growing so much that it is uncontrollable. So therefore, the government, having been warned very clearly, having known that this is a pandemic, they decided to put aside everything and go for an election. Luckily for the country, after nominations were handed over, the Elections Commission decided to postpone or not to hold the election as prescribed on the 25th of April. That was a stroke of luck. Otherwise, we would have been walking into a death trap. Notwithstanding that, the government, what did they do? They thought that they had brought it under control. There were various fictitious accounts that they are handling it the best all over the world. And on the 19th and the 20th of this month, the Minister of Health, then the Director General Anil Jayasinghe, came on TV, came on media and said, the pandemic is over. The bomb blasted thereafter. After the 20th, the cases started to increase. What they wanted to show is, they wanted to show that 20th everything is clear. You can hold an election on the 20th of June. So therefore, Samir, this pandemic has grown into such proportions because the government is hell-bent on going even over dead bodies, holding an election and trying to recover this two-thirds majority which they are dreaming of. Therefore, what we are saying is, as many members of the opposition, including the former Prime Minister Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, the leader of the opposition Mr. Sajith Premadasa, Mr. Sambandha, all the other leaders and political party leaders have made a request of the President to recall Parliament, and their request seems to be extremely genuine. They have said that they will give all support to fight the pandemic. So I cannot understand why the President is trying to be so adamant and not call Parliament and sort out this problem as a whole. We must fight it together. I can't understand. So this is the million-dollar question which we will have to find answers for.
Thank you very much, President's Counsel Maitri Gunratna, attorney at law. I need to mention right at the outset that we will not take responsibility for the statements that any of our speakers will be making today. We have the utmost respect to the health authorities in Sri Lanka. We have the utmost respect to the security forces in Sri Lanka, which is doing a tremendous job battling out the COVID-19 pandemic. We now move our attention to Krishmal Varanasuriya, attorney at law, who also may contest the upcoming elections under the symbol of the elephant representing the United National Party. Krishmal, what is the legality behind this? In a humane perspective, you might agree with Maitri on this, saying what is important right now is fighting this global pandemic. That is priority number 1, priority number 2, and priority number 3 as well. But legally, why mustn't the President not reconvene Parliament? He has that opportunity as well articulated in the Constitution. He does not have to do so. Your time starts now.
Thank you. Thank you, Shamir, once again for inviting me to your usually August gathering. And I'm privileged to be accompanied by 3 learned friends. And I know that we can direct this conversation to a level of dialogue where we can argue but yet be friendly as we always do. Correction, Shamir, there is no question of Krishmal May contesting from the UNP for Colombo. Krishmal will contest from the UNP for Colombo as and when the election is held. So there is no doubt in that. I have already had it in my nominations. But going to the question that you asked, Shamir, I agree with Maitri, and I'm sure all of us, my learned friends, are all on the same footing here. The country is not geared at this moment to face an election, but to get together as one and find a solution to the corona pandemic or the COVID-19 pandemic. That is first, second, third, fourth, fifth. You can go up to infinity, right? That's one. Number 1. However, at the same time, as you very correctly said, I do not for a moment espouse to these several arguments, particularly being raised by those close working to the government, to bring out this apparent situation that a necessity has arisen to overlook the law that we have and to take certain steps overlooking the law. I don't agree with that. I'll say why. But before I do that, I must compliment what you said and say I am wholeheartedly, both hands up, complimenting our security forces, our medical teams, our doctors. Actually, not those doctors who come on TV and talk every day. Like my good friend Dr. Ananda Vijay Vikrama, who fought for 10 years for the medicinal policy with me, who stuck at IDH sometimes 24, 48, 72 hours without rest. They are the ones who are actually fighting behind the scenes. I know that there are several pundits who are now coming to try come and take the benefit of what other doctors are doing. Whatever it is, we must congratulate the entire health service and His Excellency's team that is running this operation. We must congratulate that, and we should not be shy to say that. Having said that, there is a law in this country. What does that law demand? The ultimate law as Kelson says, we all of us study the Grundnorm, the basic law. The law on which all other laws are built is the constitution. What does Sri Lanka's constitution, however much your viewers may not like this, I know, I have also heard some of my friends who are not lawyers saying, why do we need a parliament? So the president is doing a nice job. No. The army is going with the lorries, the goods are being handed over, money is being given to people. So why do you need a parliament? You need a parliament because the law says so. If you don't want a parliament, then amend the law, saying we only need an executive, that is the president and cabinet, and the judiciary also if you want. Otherwise, you can only have the executive. But until you do that, the law requires you cannot run the country without a parliament for 3 months. That's what the law says. The law says you can dissolve parliament, but that is subject to that proviso. Within 3 months, you must summon the new parliament. Now, the law also, Shamit, framers of this constitution, has also envisaged situations of this nature. That is why they have given a window at Article 70, Sub-Article 7. So, after His Excellency the President, under the powers vested in him, dissolves Parliament, and if you are in a position where, in His Excellency's opinion, a situation has arisen, that is an emergency situation, and you are not in a position to call that new Parliament, His Excellency the President has been given a discretion to summon the previous Parliament. Now, we are talking the 8th Parliament. Now, 3 of us are contesting for the 9th Parliament. The 8th Parliament that have been dissolved, you don't need to go beyond that. You can summon them, and law is very clear that that last Parliament will go on until the emergency is over, or COVID is over, or the next election. Law is very clear. So we don't need to violate the Constitution. We can still run the country in terms of the Constitution.
Thank you very much, Krishman Varanasuri, attorney at law. We now move our attention to attorney at law Harshana Naikara, who will be contesting the upcoming elections under the symbol of the compass representing the national people's power. Harshana, interestingly, we saw a joint statement being issued by several members of the opposition of the 8th Parliament a few hours ago. However, the Janatha Vimukti Peramuna, which is one of the leading parties of the National People's Power, has not endorsed this. It gives out a different signal altogether, because why isn't the JVP, which has several members in Parliament, not for this joint statement that was issued by several members of the 8th Parliament? What is the position of the JVP and the National People's Power on this?
Well, basically, thank you for asking that question, because just before I came in, I had a cursory look at that the statement. Now, obviously, JVP and National People's Power are actually two different entities, although they are part of us. So they have not informed me exactly the reasons as to why they did not sign. But when I saw the contents of the joint statement, I think we've been saying whatever there was far earlier than the two other main parties, saying that we will do our level best to support the government, recall the Parliament, get the money approved, let's fight the pandemic together. Here, our enemy is the coronavirus, not political parties or individuals. So we were saying the same thing. As to the exact reason why they did not place their signature, I have not been communicated to. And also, I don't think they are under obligation to, JVP under obligation to inform NPP, because they are inside the Parliament as the JVP, not as...
No, but we're talking about, I recollect M.S. Sumandaran coming on the show last week said that the opposition jointly will endorse this. However, even during Faraz's show a couple of days ago, M.S. Sumandaran said very clearly that if there is a need, the entire opposition can unite and sign a document stating that they are ready to fight this pandemic together with the government. However, it seems that one party is not for signing the document.
Well, as I told you earlier, I cannot answer questions for the JVP, especially if I had this document a little earlier, I would have verified from them. But I'm sure when I saw the contents, that's what we have been saying on press conferences right throughout. But however, yes, they have not placed their signature, and the exact reason why, I do not know. But having said that, those are not contents which are objectionable to us at all.
What is the position of the NPP of holding the elections on the 20th of June?
Well, it's a completely impractical date, because I feel this time around all timetables have to be fixed by health professionals, not by politicians or lawyers. They are the ones who have to fix timetables on a scientific basis. Whatever the election, we must not endanger people and their lives. Right now, we must fight the corona pandemic. But let me also tell you a little thing about the Constitution. I will not talk a lot because my friend Krishmal has done so as Mr. Maitri Gunaratna here. But also when we are talking like big lawyers with Constitution and big terms, those who are watching at home must be wondering, this Constitution must be some document that only fancy lawyers argue. No, it's an integral part of our life. From the time men were in groups like tribes, they had a common understanding, a set of values and rules. A Constitution is a common shared morality of a nation. They say, this is how you solve a problem. This is the procedure to follow. Otherwise, what's going to happen before the Magna Carta, you know this. They have to take up to arms. Even after the Magna Carta in 2015, June, for 200 years they were fighting. With wars, they bring army to the parliament because that's how the primitive society solve differences. But we are more civilized and is modern. And also to consider, our Constitution intended that this country be governed by 3 arms: parliament, the judiciary, and the executive. Like the clutch, brakes, and the accelerator of a car. You need all the 3 proper for the proper functioning and the safety of the car. So therefore, rule of law, democracy are essential for this country not to destabilize.
Right, thank you very much, Harshana Nakara. Attorney at law, you can also make sure that the car stays put without moving as well. So that is also an opportunity for the government in play. We now move to our independent attorney at law, Kanishka, who is joining us today, who is not going to contest an upcoming election, Kanishka.
He's independent in that sense.
Interesting, Kanishka. I have a statement that was made by a politician, and that's the way that I want to start the discussion with you today. We saw a former parliamentarian from the Sri Lanka Pujana Peramuna stating that if the people can queue up at Satusa, why can't they queue up in front of a polling booth to exercise their franchise to elect the 9th parliament of the country? Because at the end of the day, democracy should reign supreme in a country like Sri Lanka. I don't want to mention the name of the politician because of reasons he's not present here today, but he did make this statement on the media just yesterday. So my question to you is this a fair assumption to make by a politician right now with regard to queuing up at Satusa and then making a parallel towards queuing up at a polling booth?
Yes, first of all, I must thank you all for inviting me. Yeah, that depends. The answer is difficult to provide for this question because it depends on the nature of the scope, the picture that the particular politician had in his mind as to the queue that. But democracy is, of course, paramount importance to for a nation. But as far as today is concerned, at this moment, our country has faced on one side the constitutional stream of constitutional issue, because a step has been taken up by His Excellency the President in terms of the Constitution, dissolving the Parliament. One organ of the government is not functional at the moment, and it is within the constitutional framework that we are now proceeding as the Constitution is concerned. But more importantly, there's no disagreement among us. The pandemic is come to the forefront because it decides, it relates to the lives of the people. But at this juncture, I want to mention correct what my learned friend, Mr. Maitri Gunaratna said. At the moment, I don't think it is the intention or the will of the President or the government to go for election over the dead bodies of the people. That is incorrect, because this President has categorically said the election will not be held until the environment, the conditions are conducive to an election. Because that is the democracy, because public life, the people's life is part of the democracy. Democracy is for the people. People are not living for the democracy. But there is, at the moment, we have to admit the fact that there is a constitutional issue that has risen because of the time frame given in under Section 70, the 3 months time frame. Once the parliament is dissolved, the Constitution says on the face of it under section Article 70, you have to resummon a parliament within 3 months from there on.
Yeah, but Kanishna, this is the issue that has cropped up at many forums. Many lawyers come on the show. Many lawyers express their opinion with regard to whether or not the parliament should reconvene or not. If in a situation of this sort, why can't the president seek an interpretation from the Supreme Court? Because we saw that happening in 2018 when there was a constitutional crisis. And many presidents in the past have sought such interpretations when there was a need. Why isn't this president doing so?
That, of course, now we have to see. Now, I can't. Now, as far as the Constitution is concerned, the president himself is a person as well as the institution as one organ of government. Now, you have to go by Article 129 of the Constitution and see whether there's a reason for the president to
ask a question.
To ask this question under Article 129 of the Constitution. So, see the ingredients, the requirement of the under 129, we have to see whether there's a requirement and what is the answer that can be expected, or whether the judiciary can involve, whether the judiciary can give an interpretation or an answer under 129 of the Constitution.
So now there are three main organs. I want to open the floor for questions from our journalists as well. One final question to you, Kanishka, and then we'll open the floor for questions. So there are three important elements in a country, that is the executive, legislature and the judiciary. The legislature is not functioning at present as we speak. The judiciary is also not functioning, and it's only partly functioning right now. So the executive is functioning in full. So isn't it right for the president, in normal conditions, to seek the interpretation of the Supreme Court if there is a need? He could always do so.
Now, why should we? Why should he? Now, when you, for example, now we take why the judiciary is not functioning. Not because of the constitutional matter, because of the conditions. The pandemic situation is the cause for this non-function of the judiciary.
It is functioning when needed.
When it's functioning, yeah. Okay. Now, even at this moment, you can file new action cases in any court.
If it's urgent.
If it's urgent, the judges are willing to take up this matters. Anyway, now when you come to this, there should, now I don't think from the president's point of view, there is a constitutional need to go for opinion. When you see the constitutional process can proceed, my view is that still, irrespective of this 3 months issue, the constitutional process can proceed up to the election and cope up with the pandemic situation also in the same time. That is, constitutionally, if you take it short, constitutionally, it is provided once the pandemic conditions are sorted out, if the conditions are conducive, you can hold the elections and reconvene the
Right,
new
thank you very much. Kanishka Vidar, an attorney at law, who's sitting in with us today as an independent lawyer. We have three gentlemen who will be contesting the upcoming elections. So we have one independent lawyer today. So let me open the floor for questioning from our journalists. On to my immediate left is Nadim Majid, and on to my far left is Faraj Shaukat Ali. So Faraj, we'll start off with you today.
Thank you, Shamir. Actually, I've been listening here to all our four very learned friends, and I've been wondering whether one thing has escaped your collective minds, and that is the basic human right, the right to life. I'd like to ask Harshana, please. Harshana, the people have, the whole world has human rights, and Sri Lanka is no different. The people of our country have this very basic human right, and that is the right to life. With the numbers rising, I don't want to go into the statistics, but believe me, they're rising at an alarming rate. And no end apparently in sight. So I don't really believe that there are people in our country who want to gamble with that little bit of safety net that we have and to push them out on the streets to go and vote. Vote for what? We have an elected president. I'm sure that you all can find some way to safeguard the people rather than put everybody at risk out there. My question is, why are you all ignoring that basic human right, the right to life?
In fairness, I don't think any of us ignored it. It was just so basic, we never thought we had to actually point it out. Because, first and foremost, as Prime Minister Maitri Gunaratne said earlier, the indecent hurry on the part of the government to hold the election was the thing that they went out of focus of the pandemic. While the medical staff and the military in doing whatever they can, even their efforts were about to be just thrown away if they were going to go ahead with the elections. Now I hear that some people are saying he doesn't want to hold an election. At this moment, our common enemy is this virus, not other politicians. So therefore, we as NPP are against risking the lives of people by holding elections and them getting out of the social distancing rule. So therefore we say, first fight corona, elections later. Now we spoke about human rights and democracy. Yes, true. As I said earlier, our constitution intends to be run by 3 arms of the government and one of them stand dissolved. But yet there's no constitutional crisis. Why? Section 70, subsection 7 of the constitution does say this much. It says that if any time after the dissolution of the parliament, if there's an emergency, the president can recall the parliament, right? He can recall the parliament and run, because for not more than 3 months does the constitution envisage that it will be run without a parliament. That's why it's giving these emergency powers for the president to call. And once you recall the parliament, that parliament will remain in force till the end of the emergency or till the election. Which means, God bless us, I don't think this pandemic will go beyond October or whatever. But even if it does, our system doesn't fall. Why? It has given a solution to be governed by the 3 arms. So there's no constitutional crisis unless His Excellency decide to create one himself by being in a hurry.
Krishman, we have a question from one of our panelists. That is, we used to have Mr. Rusirpal Tendakon as a panelist on the show before. So his question to, who's also a municipal councillor attached to the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. So his question to you is, Krishma, if the coronavirus problem came up at a time after the full term of the parliament ended, can the MPs ask the president to reconvene parliament? And if not, how so are we going to proceed? Because expenditure, security, fixing and postponing of election days should be decided by the president then.
Usual smart question by my good friend Rusiri. Hello Rusiri, thanks for the question. No Shamir, one part of that question is speculative. So I'm not going to endeavour to answer it. What if corona came after the term of parliament was over? But I will rephrase that question in terms of the constitution and say this. Now, Hashi just said, Hashi, don't mind me calling me Hashi, no?
Not at all. But just call Harshad, so people will get to know me by that. We just happen to be friends long before the election.
Long before election. And Hashi and I are running in the same election toss. So Rusiri, let me answer it this way. Whilst the constitution goes on for 5 years, now you know, after the 19th Amendment, the previous 6 years was restricted to 5 years after the 19th Amendment. Now, if your question is valid this way, if we call the previous parliament, and that goes on till September, which ends the term of the present parliament also, then your question arises, what if that happens? Now, I don't mean to elevate myself to the level of advising His Excellency the President, but if I were advising someone in authority, I may probably advise, by a 2/3 majority in parliament, the present parliament can re-amend the amendment of the 19th Amendment, which brought the 6-year term to 5 years. Let's, as everyone agrees, let's hope it doesn't go, corona doesn't go that far. But if there is a need, we can still, within this present parliament, that's why I say there is no constitutional crisis. We don't need to run to the judiciary. The present legislature can re-amend the 19th Amendment if there is a necessity and go on for whatever time that is needed for of that parliament life without violating the Constitution. So that's my answer.
Actually, to support that one more, even that question can be answered with section 70 subsection 7.
Yeah.
Because it says, even after the parliament is dissolved. That means dissolved or end of parliament, right? The term ends. There are 3 months within which the president has to recall, right, the parliament. And then, if the emergency came during that time when the parliament is dissolved,
He still can recall.
he still can recall.
Right.
Because
so
the emergency.
we have a question for Kanishka Vitaran as well, attorney at law.
Yeah.
Kanishka, this boils down to the answer that you gave before in the opening remarks. The question to you is, the president has all the time in the world to go and meet the Mahasangha and having discussions with him with regard to the governance of the country. Why not consult the judiciary when he can do so?
Yeah, the president can, but there should be a... Now, you know, if you go... I mean, if you have to answer this question, why the president is consulting the Mahasangha is also a constitutional function from my point of view. Because there's an article in the Constitution, that's Article 9. Article 9 is somewhat the article, from my point of view, my interpretation is, it functions beyond other organs also, because it's if you read Article 9, Article 9 says the state should give foremost place to Buddhism, and Buddha Sasana is there. So there's a different subject to go for a different analysis and discussion. But that is, consulting a Mahasangha is also a constitutional function, a duty, because the Mahasangha has a constitutional right to advise the president in a case like this.
Is that?
That's a function aspect of Article 9 of the Constitution.
After a statement is made, I'm going to move to President's Counsel Maitri Gunratna as well. But you can respond.
Yeah.
But I will get another lawyer to also give us a interpretation of his on the same subject that you brought forward.
Yeah. Now, when you go by Article 77, see what the president should do in this. Article 77, if I read Article 70, Article 7, it reads as if at any time after the dissolution of Parliament, dissolution may be at the end of term or before that. Maybe you can interpret in both ways.
Premature, no?
Premature, yeah, a dissolution. Okay, see? The president is satisfied that an emergency has arisen of such a nature. Now, it's to the satisfaction of the president that an earlier meeting of Parliament is necessary. So that is to the satisfaction of president. President should satisfy that earlier meeting of Parliament is necessary. So the Parliament's function should be there. He's in need of the.
Mr. Vitharna.
But isn't it necessary
to
convene Parliament now?
What's the function of the Parliament? It's a legislature, to legislate. So there are two things. He's a supreme authority to control the finance. That's one nature. And to pass laws. Right. So those are the two functions. If the president is satisfied that he needs this assistance, the function of the legislature at this juncture is needed, then he can act on 77. If he is not satisfied, he can go on with the existing laws if the existing laws are sufficient enough to cope up with this pandemic. It's an interim period only. You are going to another election only.
I'm going to give an additional opportunity.
Mr. Vitharna, you said earlier...
With your permission, if I can get a reaction from President's Counsel Maitri Gunratna on the constitutionality of getting the Mahasangha involved in making decisions with regard to the Constitution. Does that articulate in the Constitution as Kanishka explained?
With the greatest respect to my learned friend, Article 9 of the Constitution is only giving the foremost place to Buddhism. There is nothing in that to say that the president has to go and get any kind of advice from the priests with regard to running the country.
Not about the Constitution.
And not about the Constitution. Because if there is a need to get any kind of opinion with regard to the Constitution, as pointed out by Mr. Vitharna under Article 129, has very clearly pointed out that you have to go to the Supreme Court.
That's the only place.
That's the only place. So, if the president on a constitutional matter is trying to get the advice of priests, I mean, God help him. God help him. So there is absolutely no provision under Article 9 for the president to go and consult the Buddhist priest with regard to a constitutional crisis. Now 129, if at any time it appears to the president of the republic that a question of law or fact has arisen or is likely to arise, which is of such nature and such public importance that it is expedient to obtain the opinion of the Supreme Court upon it. So now see, 129 again very, very specifically says that if it is expedient, if it is of that nature, the president has to go to the Supreme Court to get an opinion. So my contention is, when all these provisions are there in black and white, if the president is not choosing to go that way, he is doing so because he does not want to run the country democratically. He does not want to run it democratically. I say that with responsibility, because if a person wants to run it democratically, they can go to the Supreme Court, get an opinion, call Parliament and run it democratically. That is not happening. This is slowly going towards a military state.
Mr. Vitharna, just to add to what Mr. Gurunathna is saying, I mean, really at the end of the day, the question is, when you're holding an election, the primary purpose of that election, I mean, it is let's say, the ultimate expression of our representative democracy, and you want that election to be free and fair. Is it possible to hold a free and fair election on the 20th of June? Because the Elections Commission's capabilities, they themselves, the commissioners themselves, have questioned their capacity to hold an election. Although they have, let's say, as Mr. Gurunathna said earlier, maybe been pushed into declaring a date. Election monitors are unable to mobilize. The judiciary, as was mentioned, is only hearing, let's say, urgent cases. You have offences against public property that are being committed right now. I mean, when the government, when the system of governance in the country is in a fragile state, can you have a free and fair election? I mean, that's a very simple question, isn't it?
No, I mean, the answer is also very simple. You can't. That's why, I mean, when first to hold an election, the ground conditions should be set forth and should be conducive. Should be there should be a, I mean, there should be a sound ground condition for the people to go and vote freely. There's no question about it.
And those conditions do not exist at the present.
Only thing is, it's something to be decided on medical advice. Medical professionals has to decide whether the environment, the environment of the country is there to go and freely vote. But why we take this matter as a constitutional issue?
Mr. Vitharna, the issue is this, right? So you can't have an election where people can go and vote without endangering themselves and endangering, let's say, putting the entire health sector at risk of collapsing. You can't have that election. You need Parliament to approve funds.
No,
your option, it seems that your only option really to secure the funding that is needed to combat the COVID-19 pandemic is to convene Parliament.
Three parts of the argument. The funding part. Now the one organ of the government, that is the head of the executive, when it reaches time, he gets the right to dissolve the Parliament. That is been done. That is a constitutional act under Article 70, under Article 33 2C.
That's fine.
There's nothing wrong with the President dissolving the Parliament.
There's nothing wrong with the President dissolving Parliament on the 3rd of March. What I'm saying is pending public funds from the Treasury that have not been allocated by Parliament after the 30th of April.
Let me come to that. Now, from that point onwards, a constitutional process starts and then it proceeds. Okay? The next step is to call for nominations, hold elections. That process should go on until the election of the next president and election of the next parliament. So, as you said, the parliament represents the will of the people. Will of the people. Now, we are heading to a situation which is giving up the people living at this moment, not the people who are living 5 years back, to give come out with, to express their will again and formulate the parliament. That's the democracy.
Mr. Vithani, you can't draw an equivalency between two different elections. You're trying to draw an equivalency between, I mean, by that case, you can draw an equivalency between local government elections and parliament
that's
elections.
not,
and any election you can draw an equivalency. These are two different types of elections.
There's no equivalent. That's what I'm saying. That's the reason. There is a difference between reconvening the parliament which is dissolved. That is, the reconvened parliament expresses the will of the people who lived 5 years back. That's the will of the people 5 years back. Now, we can't give effect to that. Rather than, if we had the opportunity, we should give effect to the will of the people living today. That's why we should go ahead with the election.
Sorry, Mr.
Nanak, when the Constitution, the last
but
part
the Constitution also clearly says that in the case of an emergency, if the President is satisfied, what I can't comprehend is why the President does not feel that not having access to funds after the 30th of April is not an emergency.
That is not necessary. I mean, always this gap to be filled. Let me say, when the Constitution provides for a situation, when the Constitution provides without any issue to go for an election, the election is now fixed, and if there's no constitutional bar to go for an election, and the election can be held after this pandemic situation is over, even for that the Constitution provides, then why should we go ahead with that, wait
because
for that
you
time?
have no access to public funds after 30th.
There is a constitutional bar now. There is a constitutional bar now. There is a bar now. Earlier there wasn't. I agree with you. Earlier there wasn't. But now there is a bar now. Because the Elections Commission has now acted under 24(3) and said 20th June election. So therefore you immediately pass the 3-month period on 2nd of June. That kind of case is a constitutional bar now. The only way to get over it is to summon the previous parliament. That is the bar.
No, that's
sorry,
of course
Ms.
I don't
Lanka,
agree. There's no bar.
He spoke.
In short, there's no bar.
He spoke
give an opportunity to Harshan.
Okay.
He spoke of the will of the people. No, he said it was 5 years ago and now. Remember, this will of the people should follow until September. Only September, because that will was given for 5 years. Number one. Number two, free and fair elections. It is not just the voting day. Candidates should be able to canvass, go meet people, talk to them, give us our ideas and canvass for the vote.
And
All those.
you can't go like this.
We can't go like that either, and risking other people. Thirdly, President is duty bound to protect the Constitution himself. By the Constitution, President has to create an atmosphere for free and fair election. That's his job on the instruction of the person. So therefore, there's no constitutional crisis. Section 77 says, money. Right now, where does the donation and all the money comes from? Are they accountable to the parliament? Is Mr. Basil Rajapaksa a member of the parliament, a minister? No. In fact, he's heading all these funds and everything. Do we know where's the accountability? Open up the parliament, be accountable. I am thinking they don't want to open the parliament because they will have to account for the money. Right? So therefore, they say account for public money. Remember, Parliament has not approved any money after the 30th of April. And Corona was not something they kept an estimate for. We need to buy machinery, vehicles, face masks, sanitizer, whatever needed. Bring in the Parliament, approve the money. They have signed a joint statement. Us NPP will also support outside the Parliament, obviously. We will somehow fight Corona. Call the Parliament. This is not about a time for a president to say, act like a spoiled child saying, I'm not going to call the Parliament. Or go and ask the monks. I mean, what I'm trying to simply say is this. This is the time. Think of the people. Think of the pandemic. Allocate the money.
Now, Krishpal, you on this very show has made assertions saying that the old Parliament are filled with crooks. So there has to be a change. And that is why individuals like you, Maitri, and even Harshan are coming to the fray, because the Parliament has to be filled with intellectuals. In a situation of this sort, do you think it's right to convene the old Parliament? Because we know that the old Parliament consisted of individuals, most of them, respecting those who are not, most of them did not have good character certificates, if you may say.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to finish. I may not have used that same word of crooks, but what I have been espousing over the last so many years, as your viewers know, is that the intention of Parliament is not what our people, unfortunately, have thought it to be. It is not to make your culverts or gullies in your town. It is not to come for your daughter's wedding and sign, right? You don't actually need to love parliamentarians. You don't need to even like them, as long as they can do the job. What is the job? Fiscal management, what we are just discussing, right? Fiscal management. Manage the funds of the country. Policy formulation and enactment of laws. 3 functions. That's all parliamentarians need to do. So you don't need to like us. All you have to do is make sure that these chaps can do the job. You see, that's why the powder babas and stars and all that are loved. No, you don't need to love your parliamentarians. Just let them do the job. Now, I come to your, Shami, that's a very important question. You see, Bonapartism, luckily some of us have studied political science of politics. You see, it's very easy now to tell the people, look here, we are doing the job very good for you. We are sending lorries of food to your house. We are giving you 5,000 rupees also. The political chaps are the ones who want the parliament to be open. See, why? No need, no. We are doing the job, no. Now, that is why I said first, that is not how the country is intended to be governed. As my learned friends have very correctly said, Kanishka, there is a question here. You can't continue to spend funds of the republic without parliamentary scrutiny. Now, our people, because of what Shamir said, because of previous examples of fellows trying to hit each other with chairs and with bottles and whatnot, people think because the messengers are bad, that the institution is bad. Parliament has not done anything wrong, do you know? It's because we have sent the wrong people, or the parties have put the wrong people on lists and asked you to vote for, that has ended up being the chaos and pandemonium that it was. So that's up to you to send the right people. But what I'm trying to say is the parliament structure, the institution, the legislative arm of government, the three-legged stool, one can't fall. That institution must function. That institution must see, as my learned friend said, where is this money coming from? Now foreign remittances have been opened. People have been asked to bring foreign monies without any checks into their accounts.
What about the COVID donations?
The COVID donations, everything has to
running
be
into millions of dollars.
That is why you elect from ancient nation states of Athens, Sparta, where everyone went and sat down under the olive tree and started making decisions. Over the reflection of time, direct democracy then has become representative democracy. Now, you are represented by 225 chaps who go there and make decisions for you. They are supposed to check on your financial accounts. So allow them to do that. That is the constitutional process. Why are we stopping that? That's the answer to your question.
Just to add to that, I mean, the 30th of April, beyond the 30th of April, I think as Harshana said, there are no allocations for other than for recurrent expenditure like on salaries. If after the 30th of April, the government or the executive in this case draws funds from the treasury for other purposes, has an offence been committed? What is the offence?
No.
He's acting completely against the oath he has taken to defend and uphold the Constitution.
No,
but what is the recourse?
Constitutionally he can. Under Article 150.
Right?
They must declare money.
What is the recourse?
Again, only for recurrent expenditure, not for capital expenditure. You can't withdraw from the consolidated fund.
From a public perspective.
One thing I want to add to what Harshana said.
Yeah.
Now, there is a large amount of money which is coming in as by way of donations by various foreign governments. Again, we are making the same mistake which was done before. This government has appointed Mr. Basil Rajapaksa, who is a dual citizen. Once we did it by appointing Aruduna Mahendran, who disappeared. So now these monies, I mean, they don't want to call Parliament for obvious reasons. Because the Parliament is the main handler of funds. They decide what they are going to do with the funds. If you call Parliament, then Parliament is going to take over this whole issue. And then one of the siblings is going to be deprived of dispensing with the money. And what is going to happen further than that, if there is an issue and he decides to go for leave the country, there is no way of getting him back.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
You just said that I just overheard you saying that the president isn't allowed to make capital expenditure out of that. And therefore, my question is, I saw an article in the Sunday Times in which the president, the cabinet has apparently passed the contract for the Central Express Section 4, and Section 3.2 is now in the process. That's $900 million. 15% of that is supposed to be paid by Sri Lanka. So are they trying to slip all these in? Is that why the parliament?
I will read out to you. I will read out to you. Constitution 150, Article 150, subsection 3. Where the President dissolves Parliament before the appropriation bill for the financial year has passed into law, he may, unless Parliament shall have already made provisions, authorize the issue from the consolidated fund and the expenditure of such sums he may consider necessary for the public service until the expiry period of the 3 months. The 3 months within which he has to recall the Parliament. So obviously, I mean, I'm clueless to tell you at this moment under whose authority and what authority that is being done.
But it clearly says that it's
May I read it? It is not what my learned friend says.
Go on
says,
then.
Where the President dissolves the Parliament before the appropriation bill of the financial year has passed into law. It is so, there's no appropriation bill. He may, unless Parliament shall have already made provision.
Which they have not.
Authorized.
Which they have not. Which they have not in this instance.
Authorize the issue from the consolidated fund and the expenditure of such sums as may consider necessary for public services. So public services, he can draw money.
For that 3 month period?
Until, not 3 months. Until expiry of a period of 3 months from the date on which a new parliament is summoned to meet.
Yes.
From that day onwards, he can have
public services
another 3 months from that day onwards. Now,
so,
with regard to the accountability of funds, may I come to that also?
Could you just say, is the President authorized to make capital expenditure or not?
Anything
for
public services. Whatever comes within the...
Doesn't it say recurring expenditure?
Recurring expenditure, because, I mean, whatever that comes within.
And also there is some doubt whether the passing of a vote on account is the same as making provision through an appropriation bill or an interim budget. So that's probably why we need to go to the Supreme Court.
Take the vote of account. May I answer to that?
Yes.
Take the vote of account that was passed in October 19 last year. So at that time, there was no provision. No one could anticipate of this COVID crisis. But now the public service, the government has to utilize money for the coronavirus issue also. For that part is not provided in the vote on account.
So,
one more thing I want to mention. I'll answer this. The accountability on the funds that is being received is there. There's a process. There's a committee appointed. It is accountable to the Parliament. I'll come to that later.
Okay, yes.
So, Shamir, I'm sorry, because when 4 of us learned friends start talking constitution, I don't want your viewer to get confused. So let's get this straight. The principle of constitutional interpretation requires a harmonious interpretation. You can't take one piece from here and one piece from there and say, well, because of this I can do it. It must be read harmoniously. That's a fundamental. Now, Kanishka, the part of what you said is correct. I agree with you. So, the 3 months, so when after the President dissolved the Parliament, he is entitled to draw from the consolidated fund because obviously new Parliament must meet. They must bring in at least, if not appropriation bill, some account for a vote. So, there is provision. But 3 months from the date on which that the next Parliament was supposed to meet. So, now that 3 months is now, when in the Presidential Proclamation of 2nd March, Maitri, what was the date that?
17th of May.
17th of May, no. So, from 17th of May, if you count 3 months, as it says, 3 months from the date on which the next Parliament was supposed to meet. Now, Kanishka, there is a question here, no? Because that proclamation, 17th of May, can't now happen, no? Because that has been intervened or superseded by intervening events, which has made the Elections Commission act under the Parliamentary Elections Act 24(3) and postponed the election to 20th June. Therefore, that originally declared date, 3 months from the date when the Parliament is supposed to meet, cannot now take place. Therefore, we can't take advantage of that and say, well, because the Elections Commission has now postponed the election, we have authority to spend money for 3 months till whenever the Parliament meets. That is not what the Constitution envisages. For goodness sake, people who are...
So then what happens? Then what happens?
No, Kanishka, please.
I'll answer to that.
3 months, once again, the operative word is 3 months. We need to look at why the framers have put 3 months. You see, these 3 months keep coming in 2 places. 3 months, if you dissolve prematurely, or when you dissolve, within 3 months you must summon a Parliament. then once again, if you have proclaimed and asked the parliament to come, you are given 3 months. 3 months to make sure that, well, after that parliament convenes, we'll give you 3 months from the consolidated budget. But also don't forget, I want to say this one more time, 30 seconds. See, this discretion of the president, as all of us will agree, is subject to law. That is what I think was the best outcome of that 2018 incident when all of us ran to court and argued cases till the night, when all of us had different opinions. Khalid Kanai on one side in that case. But what came out of that was none of these 3 institutions of government, executive, president and cabinet, legislature, parliament, even judiciary, is above the law. The law prevails. We are governed by law. We are subject to the rule of law, not by the rule of a president, not by the rule of parliament or the rule of the courts. Why do I say that? Because, Shamir, then also the question, remember what we took, the question was, in my discretion, who is fit to be prime minister? The discretion has to be used in law. Here again, there is a discretion. In my discretion, has an emergency occurred? That emergency occurring discretion can't be within a whim and fancy of any holder of office. It must be subject to law. So if this is questioned in court, whoever who makes his decision that no, I did not see that emergency, calling for the parliament, will have to submit to court why that discussion was not.
So, Maitri, let's say there is a state of emergency declared by the president, and hence you reconvene parliament. This is only on hypothetical grounds. So then what happens to the state of curfew that has been imposed by the police?
If there is an emergency situation and the president has declared an emergency situation and summoned parliament, parliament can approve the curfew or the emergency, and thereafter the emergency becomes legal. Now the emergency is not legal because it has not been
declared as
it is
no, not emergency, curfew.
Curfew
is not legal.
Curfew is not legal because there is no emergency.
And also he has not made under the public security ordinance.
He has not come under the public security ordinance. It is everyone's in the interest of everyone that we follow this whatever curfew which they have put because of the security of the citizen in this country, right? And the other thing is, Samir, the president can't follow the constitution when he feels it is beneficial to him, like what Kanishka is saying. 150.
Can't pick cherries from the cake.
That's right. He is now okay. When it comes to public funds, how to spend it? 150 subsection 3. I'm going to make use of. When it comes to opinion, no, I will get the opinion of the priest. I mean, you can't have it both ways. Either if you are going to follow the constitution, you must follow the constitution to the letter. And mind you, when he was sworn in as president, he has very, very categorically, the public must know, has stated that I will, to the best of my ability, uphold and defend the constitution of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. So this is what he has sworn. What we are telling, what we are arguing here is, you have sworn to protect the constitution. You have to protect it. Having sworn, you can't come and piecemeal. When it suits you, you can't take it, and then follow that bit and then ignore the rest. That is a case of completely violating the constitution.
Now, may I answer, because most of the questions now only I am there to answer.
I was about to say, you came in as an independent lawyer, and seems to me that all the questions are directed to you.
Yeah.
No question.
You keep on saying him independent lawyer. All of us are also independent lawyers. We are not going to interpret any part of this constitution to suit our political party.
Only thing is, I'm interpreting the constitution in a different way.
There's no politics here.
There's no politics.
But I'm interpreting the constitution in a different way.
Yeah, so Kanishka, I need to give an opportunity to all the other 3 gentlemen as well on the show, because every single time someone answers, if you go to respond to that, then I won't be able to have a balanced conversation as a moderator. My task is to give equal opportunities to all the speakers. I'll get back to you, but I want to get Harshana's...
May I say one thing before
I'll get back to you. Don't worry.
I
will get back to you.
There's going to be, my learner friend is going to create, my good friend Maitri, going to create seems to be creating a impression that president is violating. There's no violation of the constitution at
so
all.
everyone is entitled. And everyone
There's
is
no
entitled.
violation of the constitution.
Everyone is entitled to say whatever they want on the show, because at the end of the day, as Krishmal, Maitri, Harshan, and yourself would say, you're all sitting in here today to in the light of protecting the constitution of the country.
Yeah.
So we agree on
We
that.
are lawyers, we read it differently.
Right.
Yeah,
Harshan, interestingly, this question just came up to my mind, you know. Last year, the presidential election was...
When something comes into his mind, I'm worried.
Last year, the presidential election was held on the 17th of November. One day after, it was President Mahinda Rajapaksa's birthday. 20th of June happens to be Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the president's birthday as well, if you didn't know that. Probably his information to you.
We didn't.
So it's quite ironic, isn't it? Coincidence.
Shamir.
See dates being fixed by the Elections Commissioner based on I'm sure it was not in his mind either, but it seems as ordinary viewer.
A lot of things happen in this part of the world which cannot be answered with law or constitution. I mean, such as how the hell can you answer? There are so many families without a home, which we accept. They don't have a house. But then there are houses without owners.
Yeah, Harshan,
that is very strange.
Now I want to twist this a little bit and ask you another different question. Now there were three commissioners at the Elections Commission at present. There is a chairman, and then there are two assistant commissioners. However, one assistant commissioner, Mr. Hool, said...
No, he's not an assistant commissioner.
He's a commissioner.
Yeah, oh, he's a commissioner. Sorry. Papa.
Chairman and two commissioners.
Yeah, chairman and two commissioners. So one of the commissioners says that he's not in favor of holding the elections on the 20th of June. However, subsequently, after a particular meeting in question, he signs this particular document which says 20th of June, he's okay with it. Now I'm trying to figure out who is right and who is wrong. So it does put us in limbo. We are right at the ledge right now, trying to figure out. You have one person saying no, but you have his signature on the particular document, which says on the 20th of June, it's okay to go for an election. And then he says that twisting the arm of the commissioner to hold an election was also going on at that time. So you're trying to figure out now who's twisting whose arm.
Well, I mean, I can only give an opinion about what may have happened.
Of course. We are not here to...
honestly, I'm not privy to any of those things.
Absolutely.
Because
but these are on the media.
On the media, what we see. So basically, I know the commissioner had a meeting with the party representatives on that day, on that particular day off. They had
no, wrong. Because the elections commissioner was supposed to have a meeting the next day. But he decides that evening, it was last Monday evening, that the elections are going to be held on the 20th. So this is before he meeting party representatives on Tuesday.
Well, I mean, then there was a story of a gazette coming out with the date printed as the 30th, the 30th of...
There was much more than that.
There was a gazette.
Yeah. Apparently, when they finished the discussion and the document was given to be signed, two of the commissioners had signed it for the 28th of April. May.
30th too. 28th of May.
And then
gazette has been printed on 20th of May.
On a stroke of luck, Professor Hool has read it and found out that this is not the date which was agreed. That was the 20th of June. And then once he made a fuss over it, they changed it to the 20th of June. My question is also, Samir, Professor Hool had written a comprehensive letter as to why this cannot be held. He had given 5 or 6 different reasons. I also cannot understand, having sent this letter to the chairman of the commission, how he has signed the letter declaring that the election be held on the 20th of June. That is a $1 million question, because I feel, my personal opinion, this is my personal opinion, that there has definitely been some arm twisting and getting them to do this. Because one thing is, they must remember, it is unfair by the voter and by the candidates. Running an election is a very, very costly exercise. And as professionals, we have no money which we have robbed from where to come and spend for these elections. It is a very costly exercise. So when you have to start and stop a campaign, it costs a lot. So it is unfair by us, it is unfair by the voter. So the elections commissioner and the elections commission should be a little more thoughtful of the candidates and the voters, for the simple reason, we cannot go and canvass, we cannot go and have an election with this COVID virus, because people are not going to be very invitive of.
So on a later date, Maitri, I assure you that we will ask you this question. You are from Gaul, living in Colombo. How come you're contesting in Badulla? So that we will ask you on a later date when we convene after the
same
global
way
pandemic
how
is
a
over.
person lived in California came and contested in Sri Lanka, right? That is the answer for that. If a person from California can come and contest in Sri Lanka and become president, why can't I, who live in Colombo, go and contest in Badulla?
One of our viewers has sent a statement, really, more than anything else, and it says that it's unfair for Maitri Gunaratne to say that the president consulted the priests on a matter of constitution, rather that he went there to seek their opinion and so on the present situation, and that the priest jumped in. I just thought I'd read that in.
Priest jumped in.
Yeah, that's what I want to add.
They were invited by the
That's
president.
something I want to add, because it's not
I don't think you should go into the argument. No, it's a sensitive matter of religion.
It's a sensitive matter. Anyway, it's not a constitutional matter, because the priest has advice, would have advice on the governance or some other matter. It's not only on constitutional matter. It's not a constitutional. Now, when you come to there are matters. These are no.
In fairness to Maitri, I don't think Maitri can answer that question. In fairness to Maitri, from where I was seated, I heard both of them. What Maitri was trying to do was to respond to Kanishka when he said that the constitution gave foremost place to Buddhism at Article 9, and that did not cast a burden upon the president to get a constitutional opinion from the most venerable Mahasangha. That was what Maitri was trying to say.
Yeah.
I do not think that he was saying anything else, to be fair to Maitri.
And
No,
also,
but I think, Krishpal, to be very fair to Faraz, Maitri can respond to that if required.
Of course,
Yeah.
but I was trying to defend him because it's against him that...
He's the President's Counsel, I don't think...
No, that's up to us. No, Shami, that's not up to you. No, I can...
Krishpal,
I can defend my...
Krishpal,
if I want to...
you can do so. You can do so.
I don't need your second guessing whether I can defend my...
You can do so. You can do so.
No, I'm sorry. If Maitri want me to, he can certainly say...
But you don't have to...
Third parties say I don't... I will defend...
As the moderator of the show...
No, I'm sorry. I am sorry.
If Maitri wants to respond to it,
I am sorry.
If Maitri wants to respond to that, he can do so.
Shamir, I'm not accepting what you say. I will defend my
statement which
if Faraz wants to pose the question, but
I don't need anyone's permission.
But Maitri can respond if he wants to do so, because
he's my friend.
No, you can't do so. I'm very sorry.
I don't need your permission to defend.
But not on this show. Not on this
statement. Only a statement.
Now, may I say now? I want to go through this list.
Yeah.
See, these are the areas that these are matters that are pointed out that I should answer. I don't know whether I would have time. The public funds and accountability. If I go through that, there is a committee appointed by the government to handle these public funds coming for this coronavirus pandemic issue, and that is not headed by the governor of the central bank. Honorable Basil Rajapaksa is not a member of that committee, and that can be this committee. What is a transparent committee? And there's a panel. It's consisting of eminent personalities, and these funds can at any time in a future parliament can be questioned to a court.
This is again, accountability from parliament and accountability from a government appointed committee are two different things.
This is a committee appointed by the there's a constitutional flavor, because it's by the
constitutional flavor.
It's
not the framework. Flavor.
It's appointed by the head, the executive. So it has some
the
authority.
Executive is.
So it's a transparent thing.
But he's ensuring oversight of his own actions through a committee that he appointed.
No, there's a committee is handling it. It's managing
If it is so transparent.
The committee is appointed by the president.
It is subject to the authority of the auditor. Auditor General can look into that.
If it is so transparent, do you know as journalist how much money has come? What has been spent on medicine? What has been spent on anything?
The auditor can come into that. It's subject to auditing. The second thing is, I don't admit that there will
be a provision of the Constitution? Which provision of the Constitution did the President use to form this particular thing? Can you show me
President has formed this.
I know he has done a lot of things which are not in the Constitution. I just want to know which part of which article? Which article? Which authority?
Now all this time the President is acting as under this Constitution. So
which article?
article...
What's the second point
which
you have
article?
on there?
The second point, may I come to that, the other one? Think of the people, think of the, my learned friend was using these words, for a better parliament. Now what I'm saying is, now this competition, what the argument is, one set of opinion is, we should give effect to the will of the people, as I said earlier, which was expressed 5 years ago. Now, as my learned friend, my friend Krishma said, there's a problem with regard to the representative. Nothing wrong with the parliament. Parliament has done no wrong to the people, but the people, the personally innate. Now, what the president and this government is going to do, go for a better parliament, and we are in a better position. There's a chance has come.
But that's opinion.
Provides.
But that's opinion. A better parliament. That's opinion.
No, that is the
Even I
future
like a better parliament.
I want one too.
I will give an opportunity to Maitri and Harshan and also Krishmal to respond.
No, because I can't. Now, once a dissolution is done.
Yeah.
The next step is we have to go for a new parliament.
Right.
The country cannot run without a parliament.
Okay. So
now we are in the process of going for to form a new parliament, to elect a new parliament with the will of the present day people.
But right now...
So we are now going to emphasize, we are going to give effect to that.
No, but right now...
in between the pandemic.
The question is, do we...
Pandemic after the pandemic.
So why can't you... So obviously you need what you're saying is you need a parliament. Why not have the present parliament?
If the constitution, under this if there's no violation of the constitution occurs, if the system can run as it is until the election of the new parliament, why can't we go ahead and elect the new parliament?
Why? Because of the pandemic. That's why.
Mr. Ritan, you said
that's why you're missing the whole point.
You said that...
I'm sorry.
I need to give an opportunity to Maitri, Krishmal, as well as Harshan respond. So you can rebut that point if you want.
Krishmal,
what Kanishka is saying is, the old parliament, which was voted in 5 years or 1.5 years ago, they are useless.
Expired.
They are expired, and therefore there is no need to call them, because those fellows are useless. Basically,
Not the will of the people.
that is not the will of the people. My argument is this: out of the old parliament, in the SLPP and the SLFP, 98% of the same candidates have been given nomination for this election. 98% of the same candidates in that list. Those guys who were in parliament, who were throwing chairs and doing all that, 98% of them have been given nominations here. So what is the choice the people have? People have no choice. They have to choose from the bad lot, basically.
But they also have the option of choosing from the...
No, they do. I
mean,
I hope they can choose people like Krishmal, Harshana. I mean, that will be fantastic if the people can one day choose.
Sorry,
but what I'm saying is, so his argument that those fellows are useless, therefore there is no need to call them, doesn't stand any ground.
I think what you're saying is
that 98% of the fellows have been appointed in these lists.
I am not talking about personalities.
No, correct. What I'm saying is, Kanishka,
I'm emphasizing my point is
if every single time I drive this conversation towards you, then I won't give enough ample time for the other three speakers to speak as well. So I need to strike a balance between everything. I'll come back to you. So let me ask Harshan to respond, and I will come back to you in a minute. Yes.
Wait 2 minutes. First of all, he keeps on saying that will is over. Believe me, this parliament was meant to run without being expired till September. So that will is not old. And it is the same public who will vote at the next election. And believe me, the parliament, the people inside it, they never broke into the parliament. No. Sri Lankan people voted for them, right? So let's fight the pandemic now. When country is safe, let's go for the election. When the country is safe, when our people are safe, when everybody is safe, let's go for the election. And when you go for the election, as rightly Mr. Maitri Gunaratne said, most of the fellows whom the people are saying we don't want him are already been given nomination, right? Already been given nomination, right? So basically what's happening with the mainstream parties, sorry about that, mainstream parties, they kind of put in the donkeys and the ponies and ask voters to choose horses, right? So anyway, people could say the same about us also. I'm not denying that.
No, but he's a good horse.
Right. All I'm trying to say is this. Use your vote wisely. It's not an emotional job. It's a logical job for a head. Just because one is educated, speaks good English or comes from a good school doesn't make him a good person. Look for good people who have a proper heart, not a dark heart. People who will not steal. People who feel the pain of the others who are not your family. Now, these are the kind of people who could be there on top of the other education. So, bottom line remains, by my last word, so to speak, is that let's fight Corona. Let's make the country safe. We as NPP, inside the parliament, outside the parliament, wherever you need, will give the full support. Let's run the country according to the constitution and rule of law.
So, Krishmal, when you look at elsewhere in the country, in the world, let's take South Korea for an example. There was an election just around the corner. We saw Poland going for election in September, a parliament election. Why not Sri Lanka?
I think mainly, Shamir, because the systems of voting are different. Korea, from what I read on the internet, at least, if not 60, my numbers may be wrong, but a large percentage of voting was done by an electronic system. And then even in the other areas,
early voting system also.
There were protective gears, protective equipment, and we know how voting is done in this country. For you mentioned somewhere in what is the other place you mentioned? Poland. Yeah, I don't know about Poland, but now in the Americas, particularly in the northern states, it's actually a punch card system where people don't. The social distancing actually can be conducted. But in Sri Lanka, we all know how it's done. We all know how the cardboard box and the pencil stub that everyone uses the same. I don't think we can use the same methods that those countries used. If we can, it will be good. But I'm sure that if our parliament met, they'll be finding better use for that money rather than making a better electoral system, because election is not a priority now. You see, we have a parliament, and as my learner friends keep on saying, there is a parliament that was supposed to run till September, no. So, even if our pandemic is to go on for another few months, there is no harm in allowing them to do the job that they were elected to do. That's the only thing. I'm trying to find a via medium between these two sides for this reason. What Kanishka says has some substance. Yes, I have also been one of those worst critics that our legislators are not doing their job. I am still there. That most of our legislators have been wasting the taxpayers' money and not doing the job that they were elected to do. But however, that is the parliament that people voted in. That is what the constitution says. So, if in an emergency a parliament is to be called, there is already an elected lot that can go there and do the job. Certainly, we'll all run the election if and when the country is geared for it. We are all raring to go. And as Maitri said, we are not, we haven't earned those millions to run $1 million campaigns. But with whatever little means we have, with our friends helping us, we'll do the best we can. But at the time that a country is geared for an election, because there is a parliament in place and the constitution says, in an emergency, call these chaps to come and help you run the country. I don't see any harm in doing that.
But does the constitution articulate how the president should describe an emergency?
Yeah, well, the constitution, in this sense, Shamir, when we interpret laws, we fall back on other laws and other interpretations that will help us interpret the constitution. Now, after the tsunami, we had the Disaster Management Act in 2005. Now, that defines an emergency. In that, emergency is defined. What is an emergency? And in that definition, there is pandemics. Present COVID pandemic, it doesn't say COVID obviously, but pandemics of this nature are covered in what is a disaster under the Disaster Management Act. So we can certainly take some guidance from that. I haven't personally checked with the constitution itself.
But that's the 1987 amendment that was brought in, right?
Which one?
1987, the Pandemic Act that was brought in.
No, 2005 Disaster Management Act. You're talking the 1887 old act that was subsequently amended. That's disaster management, not disaster management. Quarantine and Prevention of Diseases Ordinance and all. That's an old act. I'm talking the 2005 act that actually defines the emergency. And in that, I've looked up that law. In that definition of emergency, pandemic situations are covered. So we can get some guidance from that. And certainly, as I said earlier, Shamir, one does not need to be a rocket scientist now to realize what emergency is now. Our country is in a state of lockdown. No one is going to work. Our SME sector is crashed. We are actually, the target, Shamir, is not going to be Corona. I am sure Sri Lanka will prevail as we always have. And the curve will come down and we will prevail. But at the end of Corona is our struggle. How are we going to get this country geared up and running? No one has money, businesses are stalled, shops are closed, people are not earning. That's the struggle that's ahead of us. And that's why you need to pick a good 225 at whatever day the elections are held. Whoever it is that your party is, I urge you to go beyond the party lines, but whoever it is, pick 225 people who can take your country through that crisis that's looming ahead.
My concern is this. Now, you cannot reconvene the parliament unconstitutionally. There should be a constitutional provision.
Section 70, subsection 7. I'm sorry, but you cannot.
No, I'm
Sir, but I will be quiet, but you cannot confuse the public. No, there's legal provision to recall the parliament. Section 70, article sub 7.
More than that, I am the one who came out with Article 77 before you.
Thank the Lord for that.
Article 77, you can't read part of it. That's important. My learned friend can't misinterpret.
All right, proceed.
Article 177, it says there's another part of emergency. Emergency has risen of such nature that earlier meeting of parliament is necessary and the president has to satisfy himself. And this is the only section, article under which the parliament can be reconvened. You can't revoke. As one says, you can't revoke the proclamation. There's no provision to revoke the proclamation. As such.
No one said revoke.
No, there are various arguments. This is
not here.
If the president is satisfied, this is one organ of the government is satisfied. That satisfaction should come to him. It depends on the democracy.
So how many dates do we need for that?
The parliament, the president is elected by the people and represented the will of the people when electing the president. So he is acting under authority of the people. So that is his satisfaction, though his personal satisfaction has a constitutional responsibility to act under this. So if he's not reconvening, it is a discretion of the president. It is constitutional.
That discretion must be lawful. Discretion can't be unlawful.
It is constitutional.
Discussion can't be unlawful.
That is the way you interpret.
He says the president must be
that is the way you interpret. It is a personal interpretation.
Emergency.
You can't incorporate your personal interpretation into it. But let me run across these things. The curfew. Let me sum up this. Now the competition or the argument is between whether we should reconvene the old parliament and run through this passage of time during the pandemic, or whether we should wait for this time period as it is, let the time runs, and once we recover from the pandemic and give a chance for the people, opportunity for people to re-elect the parliament. Right. So whether it's constitutional, my view is that is constitutional. You can wait without reconvening. If you want, if the president is satisfied, he can reconvene, resummon the parliament. If it's not satisfied, if the government is confident and handle the situation as it is with the existing laws, existing mechanism and administration, they can go on and let the next election be held at the condition when the conditions are settled and conducive for the election of go for another election. And that date of election is decided not by the president, but by an independent commission. So the president and the government has no responsibility over that.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. So, Harshan, you can
and then the last part of it, we can go for an election of a better parliament with the free will of the president.
I think the need of the hour is to make sure that we have a better parliament. That's no question about that. So, Harshan, yes.
Right. No, very quickly to respond to that. That the president must be satisfied. That's what subsection 7 of Article 70 says. Now, this president was not satisfied when he addressed the nation that we should lock down the country. He laughed and said, we did not lock down the country for a war. We are not going to lock this down for 28 people. Right? Now, when you say satisfied, it's not like you and me, he's holding public office. Are we waiting till people start dying like flies on the side of the road to declare an emergency? Or will you be a little more sensible and protect the people by acting like a statesman, not a politician who wants to get his 2/3, which he won't get anyway, right? Not with an election anyway, right? Can he not be responsible for people? So therefore, if the president is satisfied, he can't act like a little child with ice cream. He must act according to
No, I don't agree.
Thank you very much. I need to go to the final round, Kanishka. Unfortunately, in the final round, you can probably speak about that as well. Just to clear the air, the show is hosted by me, and I will moderate the way that I want to moderate. The speakers have to respect that, because at the end of the day, it has to be noted, the 4 speakers who are here today have the capability to respond to any of the questions that are raised by the journalists. if they need to. So in their defense, I don't think it's apt for any of the speakers to defend the speakers. In the event the speaker is not here in the premises, you can do so, and we will not allow anyone to even tarnish the image of a speaker who is not in the show. So just want to clear the air as far as the host and the moderation of this show is concerned. So we're going for a short commercial break. When we come back, we speak about what is the need of the hour. Is it an election or fighting a global pandemic? All this and more after this short commercial break. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back.
टूटे हुए ख्वाबों ने खूब लगती हो, बड़ी सुंदर दिखती हो, नीले नीले अंबर पर चांद जब आए
ඕල්ටි සතියේ දින පයම දාවල් එකට